Hello everyone, my name is Enoch, and today I'm going to be talking about some Bible contradictions. So I recently read this book by Jonah David Connor. It's called All That's Wrong with the Bible. And he goes over a lot of different contradictions, a lot of just moral problems with the Bible, a lot of absurdities, and on and on. It's actually not that big of a book, but it's really compact, it's really tight, it's got a lot of information in there. So obviously I can't go over everything in here, but I picked out a few of the most difficult ones, I thought. A lot of the contradictions I had heard of before while I was a Christian and already had an answer for, like, oh yeah, that's explained by this and that's explained by this. So there were a lot of them where I was just like, oh, that's not a problem, that's not a problem. But there's definitely quite a few that's like, that doesn't make any sense. And one of the biggest things to me is, like, even if you found an explanation for every apparent Bible contradiction there is, and you had some explanation for it, and lots of times there are these really complicated, really, hard to grasp explanations, and it just seems to me like if there's an all-knowing, all-powerful God that wants to communicate a message to us through his word, and this is his word, like, why did he even allow it to be so seemingly contradictory, even if it's not actually contradictory, because there's explanations. Like, there's many times in the Old Testament where numbers are different in, like, Kings and Chronicles. Like, it'll say this army had this many chariots and horsemen, and this army in the Chronicles account will say this and that, and the explanation is, well, it's sometimes the explanation will be, well, it's a copyist error or something like that. It's like, why didn't God not let this happen? If he inspired this word, why didn't he do a better job at preserving it and making it more clear for us fallible humans not to get confused with, hey, maybe this isn't actually completely true, because there's all these contradictions in it. And what most Christians tend to do, which is what I did when I was a Christian, is assume, well, we know it's God's word because we know it's true. And we know it's true because we know it's God's word. And so it can't have any mistakes in it. So if there seems to be a contradiction, then it's a problem with our faulty understanding, not with the actual text. And this is just one of the biggest problems of a lot of people and a lot of Christians, is they assume they can't be wrong, and they assume they have to be right, and then they're not willing to look at the evidence objectively. So I'm just going to go over a few of these, couple of ones that I think present the biggest problem, and I'm just taking them out of this book. I didn't research these myself, so it's not like I'm coming up with all this myself. I don't want to, be accused of plagiarism or anything. But anyway, so let's go ahead and start. And I don't have, I wish I had them, flash up on the screen, like the Bible verses would be really helpful. But I don't know how to do that. So I'm very not technologically advanced in my understanding. I apologize. So where did Aaron die? Numbers 33:38 has Aaron died on Mount Horeb. Deuteronomy 10:6 says Aaron died in Moshira, assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly. Mount Horeb is not in Moshira. Again, those references are Numbers 33:38 if you want to double check this, fact check this, and Deuteronomy 10:6. I'll repeat the references twice since they're not actually showing, so that if you want to go verify them, you can go verify it. Or you can always just rewind the video, of course. Okay, that's number one. Next one. And these are kind of just going to be quick fired, but basically just like a rattle off. Give me 1 second. When did King Baasha die? I believe it's pronounced Baasha. It might be Baasha, but I think technically it's Baasha. I don't know. 1 Kings 16:6-8 has Baasha died in the 26th year of Asa's reign, but 2 Chronicles 16:1 Has Baasha attacked Judah in the 36th year of Asa's reign, 10 years after 1 Kings claims he died, which obviously is not possible. Again, the reference is 1 Kings 16, 6-8, and then 2 Chronicles 16:1. Okay. Next one. How many died in the plague? This was the plague that God sent on Judah for David's sin of taking the censer of the people. Oh no, that was completely not right. This is a different plague. According to Numbers 25:9, 24,000 died in the plague. This is one of the plagues God sent on the Israelites for something they did, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, 1 Corinthians 10:9 says 23,000 died in the plague. So maybe they're, rounding the number or something, but still, why is there a 1,000 number difference? It doesn't really make any sense. Okay, next one. Is it all right to swear or make an oath? According to Hebrews 6:13, Yahweh swore to Abraham. According to James 5:12, it says, do not swear either by heaven or by earth. Jesus also says something to the same effect in Matthew chapter 5, I believe, verses 33-37. So essentially, Yahweh does not practice what he preaches. But anyway, so that's interesting. Is it all right to call people fools? So in Matthew 5:22, Jesus said not to call someone a fool, and those who do are in danger of hell. But Matthew 23:17, Jesus called the Pharisees fools. So apparently Jesus doesn't practice what he preaches either. It's interesting. Or maybe the rules just don't apply to Jesus because he can do whatever he wants, and we have different rules. I mean, I guess that's possible. I don't know. Moving on. Was Jesus' testimony about himself valid? Okay, so in John 5:31, Jesus said that if he testified about himself, it was not valid. But then turn a couple pages over to John 8:14, Jesus said that if he testified about himself, it was valid. So is it valid or not valid? And Jesus contradicts himself. Again, those references are John 5:31 and then John 8:14. Sorry, in the last few I forgot to mention the references again. All right, moving on. Did Jesus come to judge the world? So according to John 9:39, it says, I have come to judge the world. Jesus speaking. But then turn over to John 12:47. Jesus says, I have not come to judge the world. Okay. It's interesting. Seems like a direct contradiction to me. Moving on. Again, those references were John 9:39 and John 12:47. Okay. Moving on. What day was Jesus crucified? And he gives 3 different references here. Mark 14:12, Mark 15:1, and Mark 15:25. All say Jesus was crucified the 2nd day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the 15th day of Nisan. John 13:1, John 18:28, and John 19:14 say Jesus was crucified the 1st day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread when they sacrificed the Passover lamb, which was the 14th day of Nisan. And then he says dates in antiquity are always confusing, but scholars such as Bar Ehrman claim this is a legitimate contradiction. Again, those references were Mark 14:12, Mark 15:1, and Mark 15:25, all saying he was crucified the 2nd day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and then John 13:1, John 18:28, and John 19:14 all say Jesus was crucified the 1st day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. All right, moving on. What time of the day was Jesus crucified? According to Mark 15:25, Jesus was crucified at the 3rd hour. According to John 19:13 and 14, Jesus was crucified after the 6th hour, since he was still before Pilate at about the 6th hour. Again, those references are Mark 15:25 and John 19:13 and 14. All right, and then one more to wrap this up. Where exactly were the angels and the men in relation to the tomb? So this is part of the resurrection narrative in the different Gospels, which the resurrection narratives disagree on almost everything. Actually, one time when I was still a Christian, I went through them and tried to reconcile all the different accounts, put them together, and I did come up with what seemed like a plausible, possible explanation. But it was really complicated, and I don't understand why there would be such discrepancies in the first place, especially if this is divinely inspired. But anyway, this is just one aspect of the narrative of the resurrection accounts. So, where exactly were the angels and the men in relation to the tomb? According to Matthew 28:2, the one angel came and sat on top of the rock outside the tomb. According to Mark 16:5, the young man was already sitting inside the tomb. According to Luke 24:4, the two men suddenly appeared after the women went inside the tomb. And according to John 20:11 and 12, the two angels were already inside the tomb when Mary Magdalene looked. Again, those references were Matthew 28:2, Mark 16:5, Luke 24:4, and John 20:11 and 12. Those are all the ones I had written down. This list goes like on and on, but the ironic thing is, like, even if there's, like I said, an explanation for all these, which I don't think you can come up with an explanation for all of them. I mean, there's lots in here that, like, scholars even admit, well, that's probably, a copyist error because we don't have another explanation for it. Imagine someone reading the Bible and they come across these problems and they go, you know what, this has got lots of mistakes in it. Obviously, this can't be correct and this can't be divinely inspired, or it wouldn't have errors and it wouldn't have contradictions. So, this it maybe has some truth in it, but it must not be perfect. And so they don't believe Christianity is true, because if you can't trust the Bible, then why would you believe that Christianity is true, since basically everything Christianity teaches comes from the Bible? So they don't accept Christianity, and then God sends them to hell because they don't believe the gospel message, because they can't trust the Bible, because they just read and said, hey, there's a bunch of contradictions, you can't trust this. Why in the world would God allow this? It doesn't make any sense. Why would he allow his word to be so confusing, to be so seemingly contradictory, even if there is a plausible explanation for all of them, which you have to do, like, really crazy dodging and getting around things and, really complicated explanations to even try to reconcile some of them, if you even can. It just doesn't make any sense. And again, the problem is many people assume they can't be wrong. The Bible has to be true because, well, we know it's true because it's God's word and it's inspired by God, and so that's how we know it's true. And we know it's inspired by God, and we know that it's, God's word because it's miraculously true. So it has to be. It's complete circular reasoning. So anyway, that's today's video. Sorry I didn't have the verses up. Would have been a lot better and stuff like that. But those are just some of the few Bible contradictions. And I hope you all have a great day.